Retro Warriors episode 433, which is the number I said correctly and didn't mess it up at all.
First time, every time.
As always, I'm your host, Justin Baker, and as always, I'm joined by viable human Chris Saturn.
Hi, Justin.
Hi, Saturn. This is fantastic. I'm good at
Great
this.
start. This is the beginning of the evening. We got this.
I'm very good at it.
Unless somebody's listening to this in the morning, whereas it's the beginning of the morning. I don't want to ruin your illusion about what time it is.
I think a lot of people listen on their morning commutes, which is the opposite of when we record, which is Friday night.
Yeah, so we don't want to ruin the illusion, though, so just think of it as your Monday morning show.
Just know
the
that
week's just getting started, right?
Whatever part of your week you're in, we're enjoying Friday night. So however you want to feel about that. It's always Friday night at Retro Warriors.
Yeah.
Enjoy your Monday morning.
Unless we're doing a show other than regular Retro Warriors.
Right, and then it's the different
Then it's
day.
some other time.
I've been playing video games.
You have?
I know. I was shocked as well.
I know.
I went back to Tears of the Kingdom.
I haven't started that yet.
I'm finding it very frustrating to play. I think some of it is because I'm trying to figure this out, right? I'm finding it very frustrating because the constant having to build and mess with machines and vehicles is annoying to me. Because the interface to interact with them, even with the auto build function, is kind of clunky and annoying. And then you run out of the currency you use to auto build things, or you run out of some of the actual devices you need, so you have to go back to dispensers, and it's just kind of a pain in the ass.
I heard the dispensers look like gachapon machines.
They are absolutely like stone gachapon machines. They got the little capsules in them, and they fall out. It's very cute animation.
Nice.
And traversal is much more important because in this version of the game, I think it's been long enough that I don't mind very, very minor spoilers. There are basically 3 overworlds.
Right.
And because there are 3, traversal is more important. And getting around, and some of the areas of the game are built with things like... They're built with your new traversal methods in mind. So there are some instances where if you're not using the Ultra Hand or vehicles, it's much harder. You can still do it the old-fashioned way by just climbing up the side of cliff faces and stuff.
Right.
But it seems a lot of the design is very much built to like, hey, we want you to interact with our new systems, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
But those systems making and interacting with vehicles and stuff, while fun a lot of the time... Other times they're just really tedious, or like I've built a whole car and it gets a wheel stuck on a rock and the wheel busts off of it, and then I got to get out and Ultra Hand the wheel back on, but I put it on slightly sideways, so I got to pull it off there, and it's just getting really tedious for me.
It's funny, I was just watching a review of the game a couple days ago, and the person doing it was like, sometimes the systems don't work right, but it's okay because you always find yourself laughing about how funny it is. And you just have so much fun even when everything's broken.
Yeah, no, I'm not feeling that. It's just more things to have to fuss with. And on top of that, the new weapon system where basically every weapon sucks unless you fuse it. So now I'm fusing weapons, I'm building things, I'm getting currency, I'm getting modules. There are some basic functionalities that are gone. So like you no longer have a power that makes a bomb. So if you run into a place that you need a bomb, you better work out some kind of fucking MacGyver bomb type situation.
Great.
Or you can't just walk up and go, bloop, there's a bomb. See you later. Like I ran into that where I was out of arrows and I had no bombs in my inventory. So I ended up having to, I took a cannon out because that's all I had that was explosive, laid it on the ground next to the thing I was trying to blow up, and then hit it with my sword to turn it on. And it shot one cannonball and missed. And when it did that, it turned itself directly toward me and continued firing cannonballs. So it hit me, I fell on the ground, and it immediately exploded and caught all of the trees and grass on fire around me.
Nice.
And then continued firing cannonballs at me. Which was funny, but also really annoying because I'm literally just trying to get through a bombable wall in a Zelda game. That's like the most basic function.
Yeah, we figured that out 35 years ago in this series.
And so it's a really cool game.
Yeah.
It has really cool ideas, but I feel like it's just it's a little too system heavy, and I'm starting to really feel that fatigue of constantly having to grind away at the various systems that are in the game, and the UI still isn't stellar.
Yeah.
Like even in the first game, the UI was kind of clunky, but you weren't doing a ton with
usable.
it. Yeah, it's like the most annoying thing was like, oh, you're cooking, open your inventory and individually add each item you want to cook to your hand and then drop it. All right, that's annoying. So I don't know. I'm really wanting to enjoy it, and I think what I'm going to do is return to Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Just to see, because in my head, Breath of the Wild is such a more pure experience. It has a lot less systems. Granted, it still has systems. Certainly it does. But it's just a lot less systems. It feels like a much more pure experience. And it feels like it's more about the abilities that Link has and less about the shit that I can find to glue together to do stuff, you know? Yeah. And just to see if in my head that the way I remember Breath of the Wild is how it actually was. For all I know, I'm going to return and be like, oh, never mind. The UI is so vastly improved in the second one that even with the tedium it introduces, it's better. Like, I don't know. Right. It's been a minute.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to put more time in on it. I'm just finding it. And it may be how I play. I very much play these games as like, I'm just going to literally run around the overworld and do things. And so I did
That's
like
the opposite of how I play games.
Like the main campaign in Breath of the Wild took me something like 76 hours.
Yeah.
It is not a 76-hour campaign.
Right.
But I just literally wandered around, and I think the process of wandering around in this one is a little harder because the world is again designed for these machines in mind.
It took me about the same in Breath of the Wild, but that's because I insisted on doing every shrine first.
Oh yeah, no, I'm talking about doing the main quest. You know,
yeah, I didn't do the main quest until after I did all the shrines.
Yeah, if you did all the shrines, yeah, it might take you about the same amount of time. I don't think I did all the shrines. I think I did just enough to get the Master Sword and then moved on. Anyway, I also picked up the Mario Wonder.
Yes,
and man, that's just a joy to play.
Yeah. It is a fun game. It is. I'm not too super far into it. I'm in the second world now.
I think I'm one world ahead of you, so I'm like barely. So you're in like the watery beach area.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right ahead of you.
Okay. Yeah. It feels like the design meeting, the where they were trying to figure out what was going to make this stand out from other Mario games was just somebody at Nintendo was like, what if instead of super mushrooms there were magic mushrooms?
Yeah, what if Mario was fucked up all the time?
Right? What if once per level you had this really fucked up trip?
What I love about it is in previous 2D Mario games, like all the Mario Brothers,
the new Super
Mario Brothers series, it felt like they did this thing where once per world, there would be one kind of set piece level that did something really weird or inventive.
Yeah.
And it feels like in this game, they sat down and they said, hey, you know those weird inventive worlds? What if literally every level did something like that?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what this feels like. Because for people that don't know, in every level, there is a wonder section where basically you go on a hallucinogenic trip into fucking outer space. I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes, yes.
And sometimes they're really hard or they're time segments. Sometimes they're just goofy or fun or weird. Or and that's what I like. They're not just specifically more challenge. Sometimes it's just like a song or something.
Right. Yeah. Hey, did you do the Hippos in Space one already?
I did do the Hippos in Space one.
I like that one.
Did you do the one where the piranha plants all come out and start singing?
Yeah.
And they
I've done all of them up to this point.
Yeah, it's very inventive.
I went back to all the stages to make sure I got all the Wonder Seeds in each stage that I've done so far. A couple things that I'm really appreciating about it. One, there's no time limits anymore on stages.
Yes, gone.
Which is
I
nice.
love that.
It's about time. And two, there's no score anymore. So instead of you getting an arbitrary number of points every time you jump on a Goomba, it just tells you how great you are.
Mm-hmm.
A little text pop-up shows up and is like, wonderful. Like, thank you, game. I knew I was wonderful.
I'm not loving the new Mario voice actor.
I'm not using Mario, so I haven't noticed it at all.
I'm using Mario. Now, 90% of the stuff he says, you wouldn't know the difference. But then every now and then he'll say something, and you're like, what the fuck was it? That was weird as shit. But also, I want to know what you think about this, because they added these little flower characters peppered throughout every level. And when you walk
I turned off their voice
them,
immediately.
they say stuff. So you'll walk by, and like there'll be an enemy, and they'll be like, oh, that was scary.
Yeah.
And
I turned off their voices instantly.
Really?
Yeah, and when you do turn off their voices in the menu, it has a little text pop up from one of them that says, "Was it something I said?" And yes, it fucking was.
I love the little annoying flowers. I left them
I hate them so much.
Enjoyed them.
Now I still have their printed text up, so I can read what they say.
Yeah, a lot of the times it's little in jokes and stuff about the level, which is cool.
Yeah, like the one that I appreciated the most, I think they showed in the trailer, which was at one point there's some enemies and like the flower's like, how are we going to get past that? And then just like by touching something near it, it immediately kills the enemy, and the flower's text changes to just, well then.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. There's no. Oh, you know what? The thing I don't like is this might be the wordiest regular Mario game ever.
Yeah.
Like, not accounting for obviously Paper Mario and Mario & Luigi, just regular platformer 2D Mario game. There are a lot of so much text.
Yeah, the little
Prince Florian.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, the one that's not a dog in this.
Yeah, he got an upgrade.
Yeah, he got upgraded from dog to like caterpillar, I guess.
Yeah. To be fair, he was kind of a dog-a-pillar, so
that's
maybe
true,
maybe this is an homage. Yeah,
the whole game feels like it's an homage to that anime.
It does. It's very wordy, like very, very wordy. And it does a lot of repeating of things. Like every time you get a new badge, which we didn't even talk about, I love the badge system. What a great idea.
Oh, yeah.
Every time you get a new badge, he comes down and is like, do you want me to equip it? And you're like, fucking no, dude. I know how it works.
Right.
Go away.
Yeah. You told me how to equip it 6 times already.
Yeah.
I will know when I want to equip it.
But just really cute, fun, really fun game.
Which badge are you enjoying the most?
Previously I was doing the first one you get, which is the hat parachute.
Yeah.
But then I changed to the one that gives you a vertical wall jump. And I like that one a lot because, and this is another thing I like, the challenge stages teach you the advanced maneuvers of various badges. And once I got the hang of the vertical wall jump, I kept using that because that was great.
And they don't count against your life total if you die in those stages.
I was playing the game with my daughter, and one, you can play as Nabbit, which I love.
Yeah.
And Nabbit and all of the Yoshis do not take damage, but they also cannot transform into they can't use power-ups, basically.
Right.
And my kid loved that. And the best part was that if she's Yoshi, I can just run up and jump on her back and just ride Yoshi around.
Yeah.
She hates
including if you're an elephant.
Yes, and then poor Yoshi. She hates that. So it's now my favorite thing to do. I like when you
use because I'm only playing as Toad so far.
Yeah.
And anytime you use
your ears or what?
What's that?
Because you hate your ears, or
yes.
What is it?
I love the Toad voice. I love it in every game, always. Anyway, whenever you do the propeller hat thing, he just arbitrarily pulls a blue Mario hat out of nowhere and uses that instead of using the top of his head, which is what I expected.
Right.
But no, the badge I'm using now is the sprint badge.
Okay. Yeah.
The one that lets you coyote time.
Mm-hmm.
And one, it makes the game way harder because you're constantly running into everything and you can't stop moving.
Mm-hmm.
But it also means the stages go way faster, and I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. Just really a joy to play.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna slow roll this one for a month or two, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go at least a few weeks through it, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm very much enjoying it. Anyway, what else have you been playing, Saturn?
The new content for Vampire Survivors came out.
Ooh.
Just surprise new content they dropped on us. New map, new character, new weapon, a couple new relics.
Is this DLC or is it?
That's free.
Okay, all right.
Free upgrade for everybody. And one of the new relics lets the dog character transform once he hits level 80. I haven't tried it yet. I did get the relic, but I haven't tried it yet.
Of course, they would come out with new content right after we did an episode.
Right?
They heard, they listened.
In fairness, they just constantly come out with new content.
Yeah, that's kind of true. This is kind of the best $5 in gaming right now, I think.
But yeah, it's been fun going back to Vampire Survivors and revisiting it. The very first character I picked, because when we did our episode about it, we were talking about the cat and how I do not like the cats, and you do like the cats.
Yes.
And I thought, I'm going to give the cat another try. So I picked the character that starts with the cat, and I could not get any upgrades. And I was like, what the F is going on? Why am I not getting the upgrades out of the upgrade pool? And then I remembered that I had turned on permanent banish on that weapon. So I'm just sitting here with a level 1 cat being able to do nothing with it.
Yep, that sounds about right.
So
I just looked at the patch notes. It's a bonus
Yeah.
stage, 2 new relics, a new weapon, a new character, a new music track, and 6 new achievements.
Yep.
How fun.
Yeah. It's and it's Vampire Survivor, so it's still fun. It's worth checking out.
Let's do some news.
Yes, sir.
First up, Analog announces Analog 3D, an FPGA N64 clone. Now, you might be asking yourself, Saturn, as you sit over there in your fucking tower, couldn't an FPGA hardware in any of their devices theoretically use an N64 core? It just needs to connect to the cartridge? And the answer is yes, but then how are they going to sell you another piece of hardware with basically the same internals and a different cartridge slot? You dummy.
Justin.
What?
The previous consoles were not 3D. They were just 2D slabs.
Now, so the Mister has an N64 core.
Just recently got an N64 core, if I remember right. And it is still hit or miss as to which games it'll play.
Okay, so there is maybe some value proposition in the idea of an analog N64 FPGA core.
Yes.
Although they might be using that groundwork for their core anyway, and that's why it's still forthcoming, for all we know, because they don't ever say anything ever because they're terrible at communication.
Yeah, I was reading something about the FPGA core, and I can't remember if it said that they were going to contribute it back to the community or not after it released. But it is still a tricky system to emulate via FPGA. So this is interesting news at the very least. I'm curious to see what its compatibility level ends up being like when it releases.
Now, for people who are curious about regular N64 emulation, it is pretty good these days. N64 was one of those systems where it was kind of weird for a long time and not awesome a lot of the times. It has grown a lot. So
unfortunately, you're still playing N64 games.
That is the downside. Yeah, you do still have to play N64 games.
It's a shame.
Might I recommend loading up a PlayStation core for your N64, and then maybe
that sounds much better.
Have some fun. Epic laid off half of Bandcamp's staff as it sold off the division because they're fucking garbage people. They're garbage people run by King of the Garbage, Tim Sweeney, sitting in his fucking garbage heap, shitting all over people. Diarrhea King Tim Sweeney.
What's your take on Epic?
Fuck. This makes me so mad because I love Bandcamp. I was mad when they bought Bandcamp. I'm even madder that it seems that they only bought Bandcamp as like basically a courtroom stunt.
Yeah, it was fodder for their lawsuit against Apple and Google. Yeah.
It's fuck off. Bandcamp was a great place. It was a great place to buy music. It was a great place to discover music, and now they're just gutting it for no fucking reason.
Yeah, they're also they're publishing Alan Wake, which came out today, but I haven't started it yet. And they released a preview chapter for Alan Wake in Fortnite.
Great.
So I guess I just won't see that part.
God,
I hate Epic.
Epic used to just be annoying, and now it's there
was a brief period of time when they were amazing back in the Unreal tournament days.
Back in the days.
And then they started publishing their own games and became shit.
Activision Blizzard games saw their prices nearly double in Brazil, India, the Philippines, Indonesia, and other territories after the Microsoft Activision Blizzard King merger.
Yep.
So that's just fucking great, isn't it? Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks, corporate mergers.
Shit, right?
Thank you.
From what I was reading, this brings some of their prices in line with other games in the region, but I don't fucking care.
Yeah,
it was previously at another price. Why would you just arbitrarily jump it up like that?
I'm sure that there's some dumbass legal reason that they did it, but it's just still yet another shitty side effect of corporate mergers on the consumer end.
Yep.
Canceled Super Nintendo game Mr. Tough is getting released as a ROM file for $15 or a physical cart, $30 loose, $50 with box and manual. I like this. I'm not upset that they would sell the ROM file. I mean,
me either.
I get it. I'm totally fine with that. And $15 is totally fine. I mean, that's how I'd pay for it. What I'd pay for any old like indie game,
Right. And if they were to release it on Steam, that would be a perfectly acceptable price, I think. So.
Yeah. Fans have remastered Suikoden 3 via HD texture mods, which
it looks really good.
Cool. I'm glad that someone did it because we're still sitting around waiting on 1 and 2 to get remastered. I believe.
Yeah. A couple of years after they announced it.
Any day now.
Yep.
Mars, an FPGA all-in-one unit that emulates consoles and arcades, is slated to release for $700 early next year. Now, there was some discussion about this. Yep. I like this product.
Yep.
I like the idea of this product. I think this is what Analog should have been doing, which is making one multi-FPGA system. Basically what Polymega said they were going to do, and then rescinded that, and then said they never said that, and then when they were called on it, made fun of retro game enthusiasts, and then didn't do that, and said that they never did it. So basically, the idea here is like, what if the Mister, but pretty much plug and play. You don't have to buy the different units. You don't have to understand anything. It just comes and it runs. And the price is not that out of line for a Mister with all of the add-ons and a nice case. It's like, I think we did the math. I went looking at like how much is a pre-configured Mister if I were to just go buy one with a nice like metal case that looks nice.
I want to say it was within $100, give or take.
Yeah, I think it was about $600. Now, granted, you could put one together for like $450 with all the modules.
Right.
And this is more than that, but I think if you're building your own Mister unit anyway, this probably isn't targeting you, you know. This is targeting the person that's like, hey, I love the idea of FPGA. I don't want to spend hundreds of dollars for each individual console with Analog, but I like the idea that FPGA provides, theoretically a more accurate experience. And I want to get in on that, but I don't want to go down the route of building, or assembling my own Mister FPGA board. The price is steep, regardless of market conditions. It's a good amount of money,
What was that quote a couple months ago, whenever that was?
What?
About the price of... it was Take-Two, the CEO.
Oh, they're like, it's priced to market or something?
Yeah, it was I don't remember its exact phrasing. It was like, this is market acceptable or market reality or some shit.
It's market reality, if it does what it says, if it does everything the Mister does and more, because there are some features that are promised on it that are not currently available. And I believe the claim was that it would be slightly more powerful than the standard Mister FPGA units, the DE10 Nano. If that is the case, I don't think the price is outrageous comparatively.
Commercially accurate. That's what he had said.
Yeah. Objectively, $700 is an outrageous price just in general. But I think comparatively, we'll see. I'm not immediately
commercially accurate.
It's fit for purpose. The Ion Neo Flip DS was leaked/announced. This features 3DS-style form factor with twin sticks. It is basically a knockoff 3DS system, but it's running a Ryzen processor.
Yeah.
And immediately we had people saying things along the lines of, are DSs and 3DSs really that hard to get that this is, worth bringing to market? And I agree with that to a point. On the outset, I'm excited to see companies willing to explore this territory because one day it will be very expensive and difficult to get good condition DSs and 3DSs, and I want to be ready for when that day comes. But also, not even for DS emulation, the idea of having a small second screen on really any device is always kind of attractive to me. Like, that's useful to me to put specs on or extra menu options or things like that. I like
depending
that.
on how powerful the Ryzen chip is on it, I wonder if it could emulate Wii U and have the gamepad on that small screen.
That'd be pretty cool.
That'd be the tiniest little Wii U gamepad ever.
Like, really, just the idea of running RetroArch and having all of my RetroArch related hotkeys on touch buttons on the bottom screen.
Oh, I hate that.
Like, I don't know if that's an option, but I like that because I always forget my hotkeys. And so I like having
you mean just a
hotkeys
list
down
of them?
there. Yeah, a list of them. Well, they're different on every device too, like it's always
fair, yeah.
slightly different, And so I wouldn't mind that, and I could fit a lot more of them there because sometimes I'll have almost every single button on my controller mapped to a hotkey.
Yeah.
Because I use a lot of RetroArch hotkeys, lots and lots of them. So I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't be against that. And then finally, Retrobit shows off early Dreamcast controller prototypes that work on most modern systems, feature 6 face buttons and a removable VMU connector, and a joystick that is fit for human consumption.
It also has a Saturn-style D-pad.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it'll slice your finger open. It looks very nice. I'm in favor of trying this and seeing how it can. I don't know how they could make it worse because the Dreamcast controller is terrible.
I love the Dreamcast,
but you're allowed. I can't legally stop you, but my lawyers are going to get back to me on that.
Yeah, they did show off both a wired and a wireless model, and the wireless model, it looks like they're still in the process of making it all work, but what they're planning on is having the receiver that plugs into the system be the part that has the VMU in it.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then the controller itself won't have a VMU slot. So if it's a game where you need to look at the VMU frequently, I guess you'll have the console close enough to see it anyway.
You just lean over and look.
Whereas, why do you need wireless at that point?
Anyway, speaking of shitty things, that brings us to our topic at hand, which is Hidden Turds Game Boy.
Hey.
And this episode idea was contributed by our producer, Guy, who said that it's episode 433. So, welcome to episode 433.
Yeah, we had, if I remember right, it was after we had recorded one night, so it's, late, and we're all exhausted, and we were talking about, big numbers coming up, and we had mentioned, I think we had just done the previous Hidden Turds episode, or maybe we were talking about maybe doing another one, and he said, oh, we're coming up on 433. You're going to have to do another one then. So here we are.
Here we are indeed. So this is a format that we started previously, and hopefully we'll do more than just 2 episodes of before, unceremoniously forgetting about it for 5 years and then going, oh yeah, Hidden Gems was a thing that we were doing for a little bit. That was a series.
How did we do
had.
those? I don't remember.
As far as scope, this is not a list of the shittiest Game Boy games that ever shit.
No.
Additionally, this is all opinion. We don't want to attack your opinion. If you disagree, then that's cool. You are allowed to have your opinions. You're allowed to be wrong. It's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone's wrong anyway. Don't worry about it.
We're all wrong about most things.
And then Saturn wrote in the notes that we are not necessarily saying these games aren't enjoyable, but I am, and I will, and you can fight me about it in Discord. Link in the description. This is also going to be America-centric. But, Game Boy is not region locked.
No.
And it's
and
very
Game Boy emulation
emulatable.
has been workable since the mid-90s.
Yeah.
So.
And then Saturn did impose some rules. So we're trying to avoid down ports because that's kind of
Actually,
easy.
I think you had imposed these rules.
Did I
was
put
just
these,
trying to remember
these rules
them.
in?
No, I put them in the notes, but you had been the one that proposed them.
One of us imposed rules on avoiding down ports. It's easy pickings, right?
Yeah.
Like, of course, Croc on Game Boy sucks compared to Croc on PlayStation. Of course it does.
Yeah.
So we're trying to avoid down ports. We're trying to also limit the number of licensed games because the Game Boy and Game Boy Color was chock full of licensed garbage.
Yes.
And it's just kind of, it's not really worth our time. Like, of course, a lot of the licensed games on the systems suck a lot.
Right.
So,
And I added a self-imposed challenge to myself as well because before Pokemon came out, which for young people, there was a time period where the Game Boy was out and Pokemon was not. And it was 9 years.
It was a pretty long period of time.
Right. And during that time, it was by most people known as the Tetris system. And it had other things and people enjoyed other things on it. But by the non-gaming public, it was the Tetris thing. And so I decided I was going to try to choose some of the turdiest puzzle games on the Game Boy so that when people think of it as the happy puzzle system, you can also think of this crap too.
There are a lot of puzzle games on the Game Boy.
Oh, there's a ton.
People saw Tetris happen and they're like, we can do that. It's just blocks falling. Turns out you can't.
Turns out that's a bad start to your programming session there, because there's some shit.
And then in episode 433, we apparently went off the deep end because the notes of this section say turdminology, and then it says reflusher crossed out, and it says refresher. So this is where we tell you what we mean by hidden turds.
Yeah.
Because we have 3 categories. A category 1, hidden turd, is a game that is hidden for a reason. It's just really bad. It's not something you should play. There's really virtually no redeeming qualities.
Right.
It sucks. It's a sucky game.
Yeah, it was a bad game, and it was forgotten for a reason.
A category 2 turd is a game that looks good at first. Maybe first couple levels are good, or maybe it seems fun. And then the more you play it, the more you discover the gooey turd filling.
Yes.
Which I assume is what they put in Milky Ways. Gooey turd filling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Almond Joy.
Hidden turd type 3. These are games that are known for being bad or look like they're bad, and maybe they probably are, but there's some kind of quality, maybe tangible or not, that makes it maybe something you want to check out. Maybe something that it sucks, but there's something cool here that if you're a fan of the genre, you may enjoy.
Yeah. Or maybe you're a masochist.
Or maybe you're a masochist. And my first turd, I know we said no downports, and I'm immediately breaking that rule. But this was years later, to the point that it doesn't really, it didn't feel like a downport, and it doesn't even try to be the same as the original game.
Uh-huh.
So I give it a pass, also because I played so much of it. So much of it. And that is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which is a category 1 turd, which is to say...
This is Game Boy Color, right?
This is Game Boy Color. Most of mine are Game Boy Color games.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
So it's all lumped in here.
I went all early Game Boy, and you went all late Game Boy.
I did go late Game Boy, so I went Game Boy Color.
Uh-huh.
So I played an insane amount of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 on the Game Boy Color.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I put it here is it really retains nothing of the original game.
Yeah.
It is completely its own very weird and very not even close to the same kind of game thing. Because if you'll remember, there's not even enough buttons to do all of the different things that you can do in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
But let me ask you this. Gameplay-wise, is it closer to Tony Hawk or is it closer to Skate or Die?
Neither. So there's 2 modes. Half pipe and race.
Right.
Astute listeners might recognize those as modes that do not exist in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater on consoles.
But they do exist in Skate or Die.
Do they?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a shitty... It's been so many years since I played Skate or Die. So in half pipe mode, you're just on a half pipe going back and forth. Yeah. And it sucks, and it's terrible, and the controls suck, and I've played... double-digit hours of this game, which is far too many. Maybe 50 hours, a lot. And nice. I can't fucking figure it out. I don't know how it works. I can't do any tricks. Nothing works consistently. The collision is all over the place. Race mode is a race. You're racing through a little area, and it also sucks and is dumb and plays terribly. It's
Now I want you to go back and play Skate or Die and then tell me how close it is to this.
From what I remember about Skate or Die is when you jump into the game, you're kind of like you can kind of free skate around to stuff. Well,
you can skate to the different game modes.
Right.
Because like the hub screen lets you skate around on it.
And the skating itself, this is off memory, feels very different. And there's no hub or anything connecting, or it's just like you pick half pipe mode and you're in a half pipe now. Yeah,
in Skate or Die on the hub screen, it's basically tank controls where you press up to go forward and left or right to turn. But then in the different mini games, they all have different controls.
Yeah. It sucks. It just sucks. It's not fun. The only cool part is that it has really cute sprite versions of all your favorite pro skaters. So if you're just dying for a tiny Bob Burnquist or Rodney Mullen on your Game Boy screen, then I guess that's there.
I was about to
have that.
ask you if there were any professional skaters other than Tony Hawk, and then you just immediately named some. So I
Saturn,
guess
there are many pro skaters other than Tony Hawk.
No, that can't be
Still,
true.
it's like you never read Thrasher magazine. What's wrong
I've
with you?
seen the cover of the box says Tony Hawk : pro skater. It doesn't say some other guy's name there.
I was an obsessive Thrasher reader for many years. So, I used to be cool back in the day, back in the long ago.
You sure?
Now I have a Timex watch. It'll happen to you too. Look, honestly, especially the half pipe mode, it's not much more advanced than a lot of later Tiger handheld games. It's not fun. I don't know why I played so much of it. Please don't play it.
Because you had it.
Please play anything else. And they go up to Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 on Game Boy Color. 3 I didn't have. 1 and 2 I did have. And 2 was not any better. It was also just bad. What's your first game, Saturn?
I'm going to go with Boomer's Adventure in Asmic World.
Okay.
And I'm going to call this a Cat 2 turd.
Okay, so start's good.
Yeah. So this was something that I was excited about when it first was. That's why I'm giving it a Cat 2, is because when I first saw this advertised in magazines and there's cute box art with a little cute pink dinosaur, I thought this was going to be just a cute mascot platformer.
Mm-hmm.
And that I would get to play as a little cute pink dinosaur, and dinosaurs are cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't play it until I got it on an emulator, 10 years or so later.
Right.
And this is the most boring overhead moving block puzzle game you can possibly imagine. The levels are massive.
Uh-huh.
And if you remember right, the Game Boy screen is not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's constantly scrolling in every direction, and enemies will just pop in like right there next to you when the screen scrolls over, and there's nothing you can do about it at that point. And it's like a mix between a pushing block puzzle game and a Pac-Man style maze game, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Except for you never quite know what you're supposed to be doing. Like there's keys and there's doors, but sometimes it's difficult to find where a key even is in the level because they're not visible.
Yeah.
And I think you're supposed to defeat the enemies first to get... It's obtuse. Mm-hmm. Maybe if I'd had an instruction manual, I would have enjoyed the game better, but I didn't.
There was one game on this list I finally broke down and looked up the instruction manual for, because I was like, surely it's not this stupid and nonsensical, and boy, was it. It was exactly that.
I would also like to note that the game restarts every time you pause. It restarts the music every time you pause. Mm-hmm. And the music sounds like farts. Mm-hmm. It sounds like someone programmed farts into the Game Boy speaker. And it's just that over and over.
Wonderful.
At least at the beginning of the song, which wouldn't be so bad until you pause and it restarts every time.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it got past QA.
What is Asmic World?
So Asmic was the company that developed and published the game.
Okay.
And after this game came out, Boomer became their mascot.
So Asmic World is just Asmic's games.
Yes.
Basically.
Yeah, except for it's just this one game.
Mm-hmm. I did see that Boomer's Adventure was referred to as a trap-em-up.
That's not a word.
There you go, Seth. I don't know what that means.
I don't think they know what it means. I will still say that Boomer is adorable. So.
He is. Yeah, I did look up the cover art of that one because he's quite cute.
Yes.
My next one, I'm also not calling a downport.
Yeah.
Which means I'm not breaking my own rules twice in a row because I'm one of the hosts of the show. It would be ridiculous if I did that 2 times in a row. Mm-hmm. But it is Pong the Next Level. Mm-hmm. And the reason I'm not considering it a downport is because while it is definitely a visual downgrade, it's the same fucking game. It's Pong. It's just the same. I don't know that I'd call it a downport as much as just a port.
It's a downport of the Next Level, which was specifically a graphically enhanced version of Pong.
True. I guess, yeah. I guess I'm a liar. Anyway, it's category 3 turd. I like this game. I know it's a piece of shit. I know it's just Pong.
Yeah.
It did come out on Windows and Mac and PlayStation. I
Yeah.
had the GBC version. It came out in the same year as everything else. It was all released at once. It was 99.
I thought it was on Dreamcast too. Did it not end up coming out on Dreamcast?
Not that I saw.
Okay,
It was not listed.
Maybe that version got canceled or something.
It was Game Boy and
It was
Windows.
during that brief
time.
window of time when Hasbro owned Atari, and they were
Yeah.
remaking all of Atari's games.
So it's Pong, but
Yeah.
there's like new stages and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's Pong. It's not terrible as far as like new ways to play Pong. We're like, oh, it's an ice level and there's little penguins that like you can bounce the ball off of and stuff. But it's still just kind of Pong in 1999, you know?
And
And
still totally relevant then.
this
right?
was the first Pong I ever played because I'm not old enough to have played original Pong.
right.
I've never even seen an original Pong in real life because I was born in '88, and I'm pretty sure they had all eroded off the face of the earth by then.
I've got a Pong machine.
Well, I've never seen it, Saturn.
Oh. I'll put some C batteries in it, and we can check it out.
It's one of those games where like it's a piece of shit. I know it's a piece of shit, but also at its core, it's still functional Pong.
Yeah.
So like, if you're like, man, I fucking love Pong, then
It's hard to make hardware that can't handle Pong.
yeah, that's true. That's very true. I think the Gamecom might struggle a little bit.
I think even the Gamecom could have handled it. Not well, but you know.
But I played a lot of this. This was in my Game Boy a ton, right along with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I realized a lot of the stuff on my list is just the games I played growing up. Because the thing about the Game Boy, and this is probably going to be specific to me, is that I was pretty young when I had a Game Boy and a Game Boy Color. So I was given a lot of chaff games.
Right. Yeah.
Like the kind of chaff that like your grandparents and aunts and uncles would buy for small kids, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Because this game was $10 and the new Mario game was $30. So we got him Pong.
Yeah. I had a bunch of that kind of stuff too, but it was stuff that came with my Game Boy, like a Simpsons game and Radar Mission and a bunch of that trash. But fortunately, I had some say in what new games we got.
So I didn't. I think really when I remember being like, I want this game was Pokemon, because I was about 10 when Pokemon was coming out, and up to that point I was like, I don't care, just Game Boy games. You know, I can't tell the difference. I just want games. And I did have an original Game Boy before the Game Boy Color, and the only games I had on it were Balloon Kid, Battletoads, Mega Man 4 or something, one of the later ones.
One of the expensive ones.
And that one had the label ripped off of it entirely.
Nice.
And I think that was
good.
it. I think those are the only games I had, and the battery compartment was completely corroded, so I had to play by AC adapter.
Yeah.
And it was a DMG, and
we
sucks.
chose to play our DMG by AC adapter just because we didn't want to buy batteries.
Right. And then I got a Game Boy Pocket, and I got Link's Awakening with it.
Yeah.
And that was like, whoa. And then Game Boy Color. And then for some reason, when the Game Boy Color came out, I was getting more chaff. I think a lot of it's just because the Game Boy Color was really packed with chaff games.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like it had more chaff than the Game Boy. Or maybe really just a different breed, because I feel like, as you kind of are pointing out with your selections, the chaff on the original Game Boy was a lot of like Mahjong games, knockoff puzzle games and stuff. But when the Color hit, I feel like we saw a lot more licensed stuff.
I feel like there was still plenty of licensed stuff early on, just you didn't see it as much because it had all already started to fade away by the time you were getting your Game Boy.
Maybe. Very probably. Yeah, that's a good point. Anyway, it's Pong. I played a lot of Pong on my Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
So there you go. Pong. What's your next one, Saturn?
Q-Billion?
Q-Billion.
Yes.
Pray tell, what is Q-Billion?
Well, for one thing, I don't think it's a number.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, it's a
that's all I
billion
got.
Qs, right?
It could be a quantity, but I don't think it's a number. Anyway,
did your copy of the game have the weird mouse thing on the front on the skateboard?
that's the only version of the game that has the weird mouse on it.
I assumed that was the Japanese cover.
No, that's also on the American cover, if I
And he's
remember right.
pushing a Star of David with his hand.
I don't remember there being a Star of David.
I mean, it definitely looks like one.
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Oh, you got to look it up now because it's very strange looking. Here, hold on. I've got a picture.
No, he's just sitting on cheese on mine.
No, this is the cover because I looked this game up because I thought it said Qbert.
Oh, okay.
This is the cover art that I saw.
Yeah, I see it now. Yeah.
So I guess they removed that for the U.S. version.
Yeah, the tagline on the U.S. version was the puzzle game to choose, but it spells choose CHEWS.
Oh, God.
Because it's a bunch of mice on cheese. Anyway, so this... I have words for Qbillion. So it's a puzzle game where you push blocks around. I'm I'm on record being okay with that.
Uh-huh.
But instead of actually making the graphics for the blocks, it's just numbers. And so if you have a block that is 3 blocks tall, it's just the number 3.
Uh-huh.
And so you can't
kind of
reach
have to mentally math things.
Yes.
All right.
And so if you want to push the 3 block, you can't reach the top of it. So you have to push a 2 block over there, but you can't get on top of that either. So you have to push a 1 block over there so that you can get onto the 2 block and then push the 3 block. But it's just numbers the whole time. There's no like visual representation in your video game.
My favorite is that it was developed by a company called Winkysoft.
I thought this was just one of Sega's own internal games. I didn't realize that they got Winkysoft
I looked
involved.
this one up, and there were 2 funny ththings about it. One was its developer listed as Winkysoft, which sounds like a company that makes firmware for penises. And I looked up because I thought it said Qbert. Then I was like, what the fuck is Qbillion? And the description on Wikipedia says, and I quote, in Qbillion, you control a mouse that, for reasons that are left unclear, has to reduce stacks of blocks to units 1 block high.
Right.
For reasons that are left unclear.
Yeah. So that's all you do is you just push blocks until they are all exactly 1 block high.
Yeah.
And it is more of a literal puzzle game. It feels like something they would have given me in class to like in alongside your tangram blocks would have been a copy of Qbillion. Just because it is that kind of thinking.
In the related games on Moby Games, they listed Qbert.
Why?
And in my head, I'm like, did they just put that there because it's like the other Q game on Game Boy? Like, is that why it's related?
Yeah, it's the other game with Q in the front. Did you actually mean Qbert? Because nobody meant Qbillion.
Yeah, clearly you must have meant Qbert.
Oh, also, anytime you try to pause in Qbillion, it goes back to the title screen.
So, what?
Yeah, it just goes right back to the title screen and lets you put the password in again if you want to. You can still resume, or you can start a new game. It's right there in the menu because you're all the way back at the title screen. The music is like 7 seconds long.
Uh-huh.
And here's my favorite part. A few years ago, somebody remade this game in HD, and they released it at QBillionHD.com.
Oh, no.
It's not a remake. It's a Java port, or maybe a JavaScript port, or maybe an HTML port of the Game Boy game with the Game Boy game's graphics. Nothing has changed.
Just beautiful.
It's just the Game Boy game played in a browser window.
That's what you wanted, right?
Saturn? And I thought that maybe it was just an emulator running in a browser window.
Yeah.
But it's not, because in between stages, it's printed in HTML code instead of in the game. So they ported it to web browser. I don't know why, but it's there. So yeah, this is just a really dull game. I'm giving it a category 1.
My third turd is Monster Rancher Battle Card GB, which is a category 2 turd.
Yeah.
And for people that don't remember Monster Rancher, it is the monster franchise that even Digimon beat. So if you need some context there.
That's the one you got to read the CDs from, right?
Yeah, that was
How do you do that on a
feature.
Game Boy?
Oh, you don't.
Oh.
You don't. Instead, Saturn, you get cards.
Boo.
It's a card game version of Monster Rancher. Came out on the Game Boy Color in the year 2000. This was published and developed by Tecmo.
Yep.
It is realistically not a terrible card game.
Yeah.
It's also just not very fun. It was really kind of slow and tedious because you would have 3 monsters on each side at a time. So just like progressing through the phases of combat necessitated multiple windows of attack, defense, attack, defense, attack, defense, attack, defense. And it just got really tedious and old really fast. It's just not awesome, especially because it has the unfortunate, problem of existing alongside the Pokemon TCG game on the same platform.
Yeah.
That was also very affordable and very available.
Right.
If you had a Neo Geo Pocket Color, you had the Capcom versus SNK card games, Match the Millennium. Was Match the Millennium the fighting game? I don't remember what the subtitle from the card game was. Anyway, and there's also a Yu-Gi-Oh game on Game Boy Color, which I don't know if it was better or worse, but it was there.
I think it came out after this, though. The released in the West. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because this is 2000, so it would have been later.
I was already working at EB when that one came out, because I remember it was really weird that we had gotten a new Game Boy Color game when the Game Boy Advance was already out. Yeah. And I was like, when I saw it, I was like, oh, it's another trash game that nobody's ever heard of. And then I suddenly had 100 people at the door asking about it.
It looks like there were 6 Yu-Gi-Oh games on Game Boy Color.
Maybe we only got the one over
I think only one of them came out over here. Yeah. Because I don't remember when Yu-Gi-Oh the property, like the cartoon and the card game, came out in America, but I think it was later, 2001, 2002. Yeah, the Yu-Gi-Oh game's 2002. Regardless, it's just not a great game. It's really tedious. Progressing through the battles is tedious. There's just kind of better card battle games to be had on the Game Boy, but I didn't have them, so I played this all the time. And let me tell you, it takes forever for anything to happen. And it wears on you very fast. I tried to go back and play some of it for the show, and even on fast forward, I was just done. I was like, it is taking too long for anything to happen. It did get a sequel on PS1, but it received equally mediocre reviews. I don't know why. I don't know why. I mean, the whole thing of Monster Rancher that made it cool was that you would put in music CDs and it would generate a monster. That's what made it cool.
Right. Yeah.
And reducing it down to a card game and then sequelizing it onto PS1 is weird. The best thing that came out of this game was the advertisement for it, which was in magazines, and it was a guy, and his eyes are crossed, and it says, "Did someone mention monsters?" And he's screaming, and his mouth is full of monsters.
Oh, God.
Like from Monster Rancher. So that's the best thing that ever came out of this game, I think. It's just not awesome. I don't see any reason why you would play this over the Pokemon TCG or even a Yu-Gi-Oh game on Game Boy Color. It's just kind of mediocre and not great. So
that's a shame.
There you go. Saturn, what's your third turd?
I'm going to go with Cat Trap,
okay.
Which I think they're going for Cat Trap, but it's spelled Cat Rap.
Yeah. Is it not about cats rapping?
Oh, I wish it was about cat.
I think that's the
rapping.
working title for Parappa the Rapper.
Cat that's
rap.
Dog Rap.
Yeah, because he's dog, right?
Yeah.
I do like the cover art for this.
Yeah, it's a very cute looking box.
It's in the Asmic verse.
It is part of the Asmic Game Boy universe.
Yeah, so there you go. The Asmic Cinematic Game Boy universe.
So when I went into this, I planned on putting this as a Category 1 because my brief time playing it back in the day, because a friend of mine had it, I remember making fun of him for what a garbage game it was because the face buttons don't do anything.
Oh, no.
But I went back and played it for the show and learned the face buttons do something, just not anything that I would have expected a video game to do at the time.
Okay.
So it is a game where you play as cat people that attack mummies.
All right. I'm excited by this on the outset.
So basically it's like a single stage puzzle, but it's like a platform puzzle. And all you have to do is touch a mummy and you win. Because mummies apparently can't fight cats, I guess.
Yeah, I would count touching a mummy as winning in the first place. So I'm in favor of all of this. Yeah.
And you have to touch all the mummies and then you win. But you can get stuck because you have to push platforms around in order to get places because, it's a puzzle platformer.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't jump because your only options for movement is the D-pad.
Mm.
The face buttons are rewind and fast forward.
Okay.
So if you happen to get yourself caught in a hole or you push a block where you can't use it, you can press the B button and it'll rewind time enough for you to get out of it at least.
Yeah.
And if you don't move, you can then press the A button to fast forward back through all the moves you've already done. But if you move at all, the A button is useless all of a sudden. Now it is the nothing button. And that's what I remember from my childhood, was that the A button did nothing. Because I kept expecting it to jump or something.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. Unless you have some moves to fast forward with, the A button is the nothing button.
It just sounds kind of bad.
It's kind of bland.
Mm-hmm.
But I will give it a Cat 3 because it's not awful for what it's trying to do anyway.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like a mid-'80s PC game more than it feels like a 90s video game.
Yeah, which makes sense because it was a mid-'80s PC game.
Was it?
Yeah, it was on the Sharp MZ80K.
Oh.
I looked this one up. It was released as Pitman, though. I don't know the Sharp MZ80K. I'm guessing that was Japanese.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's a Japanese only.
So yeah,
computer.
You nailed it. It definitely is a mid-'80s PC puzzle game.
Yeah, it's what it feels like. It feels like an 80s microcomputer game.
This was also released on 3DS apparently in 2011. I'm guessing on Virtual Console, probably in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one also inexplicably goes back to the main menu screen, but not when you pause, when you finish every level.
Oh, God.
But that does let you choose between boy cat character or lady cat character.
Yes. All right.
And I will say that of the two, they play identically, and their sprites are so small that you can't tell the difference anyway. But Girl Cat's music is less annoying than Boy Cat's music. So if you're going to choose one, choose Girl Cat.
I don't know what region it was called this in, but in some region it was released as Power Paws.
That sounds like a much more exciting game.
I don't know.
And it's not. It's not an exciting game. But it's not
expensive. It's like $50 for the bare cart.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Damn. Why?
I don't know.
It's not a bad game. It's a game though.
Yeah.
It is. If you're just looking for the world's most basic puzzle platformer, it is that.
Yeah. Yeah. My next one is my first original Game Boy game.
Yeah.
And it is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Fall of the Foot Clan.
A famous one.
And yeah, it's not super hidden because the TMNT trilogy on Game Boy was pretty well known. But I feel like most people are usually talking about Radical Rescue or even the sequel to this one whenever they're discussing these three games.
I barely remember that there were sequels. This was the only one I played because my friend had it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to agree with everything you're about to say with it.
This is a Tiger handheld game.
Mm-hmm.
It is a single-plane, side-scrolling brawler in which you repeatedly kill basically the exact same pool of enemies over and over.
And how many enemies can be on screen at the same time? Isn't it like one or two?
Not many.
Yeah.
Not many. It has very stiff, floaty controls that feel very Tiger handheld. And so the sequel is basically the same thing, but it doesn't control like a Tiger handheld game.
That's something.
This one controls like a Tiger handheld. It has that weird floatiness, stiffness to it.
And you saw that in a lot of really early Game Boy games for some reason.
So the sequel, still not great, but infinitely more fun and playable than this one. Yeah. There's a whopping 5 stages with 5 unique bosses. And definitely the later Game Boy TMNT games were much better. This one kind of landed in 1990 before, like you were saying, devs really figured out how to utilize the form factor of the Game Boy.
Right.
Of like, hey, yeah, it's basically an NES inside, but there's no color and the screen is so fucking tiny that how do we meaningfully convey any information?
Right.
And I don't understand this because I've played this game a lot. I own the physical copy of this game. I've played it on emulators. I played it again for the show. Somehow, and for zero viable reasons, this landed on Nintendo Power's top 20 Game Boy games of all time.
I can tell you why.
Why?
because it says Ninja Turtles in the title.
There are 2 other much better Ninja Turtle games on
this one
system.
sold better.
I just don't get it. I don't get it. This is category 1 turd through and through. I know that at the time it was not hidden.
No.
But I will say that these days, not a lot of people are necessarily talking about Fall of the Foot Clan and the grand scheme of Ninja Turtles games. I think it's in the Cowabunga collection. I think all 3 of the Game Boy games are.
Yeah,
And
I feel like a lot of the people who are coming into retro gaming in recent years don't realize how many bad Game Boy ports or Game Boy games there were that were part of the same franchises that were cherished and remembered on NES or on Genesis or whatever. And the handheld versions were just barely playable.
And these are the people I want to speak to, because to them, they might think they found a diamond in the rough, a hidden gem. There's a trilogy of Ninja Turtle games on Game Boy. I didn't realize that, because all the other TMNT games get so much acclaim these days, and these ones, like you said, while they sold well, have been kind of forgotten.
Yeah.
There's
a reason.
There's a reason. If you have the Cowabunga collection, leave it unplayed. It's not worth it. It's a shitty game. It's just a Tiger handheld game, but on a Game Boy, it sucks. It sucks so much. And the price reflects that. You can get it for like $3. It's sucky. And I don't like it. What's yours, Saturn? What's your 4th one?
It's Bubble Ghost.
Bubble Ghost. I've heard of Bubble Ghost.
This was another one that I wanted because of the cover when it first came out.
I'm noticing a trend where you seem really infatuated with the covers.
Yeah. When I would see the ads or the covers, I'd be like, oh, that looks really cute.
Now, which colors
really
did
cool.
you see? Because this was originally on computers. It was on Atari ST first, and then came to other home.
But I didn't see it until it came out on Game Boy.
So I don't know if you've seen the original cover.
I did. I saw that when I was looking this up.
It is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, that is just weird and creepy.
What is
the
Game Boy
color? Cover is very adorable.
Okay. All right. Let me see if I can find that one.
Yeah.
Oh, there's 34 more pictures. Oh, it's so cute.
Right?
I've seen this game on hidden gems lists.
Oh, I'm sure somebody has put it there.
I've seen it before.
So here's the thing. It's basically shitty billiards.
Okay.
So this is a game.
Real quick, if you want to have real nightmares, look at the cover for German Bubble Ghost, which I'm sharing to you now. This is some weird ass shit, man. It's like if David Lynch did the cover for Bubble Ghost. Anyway, please continue. I'm sorry. It's shitty billiards.
Yeah, so this is shitty billiards. Basically, you control this little ghost as he blows at bubbles to try to get them into holes, essentially. So instead of hitting the ball, you just keep walking behind it and pushing it with your breath. And there's all these random obstacles in there because it's a PC game of this era, and level design and PC gaming, especially European PC gaming in this era, is let's put random shit all over the level.
Yeah.
Like let's put random pencils here and razor blades and a part of a car.
Things kids love.
Yeah. Just random shit all over the place. And if the bubble touches any of this, you die. Well, the bubble dies. The ghost just looks at you like he's disappointed.
Disappointed in your performance, right?
Yes. Like it's your fault. Even though he's the one who is ostensibly blowing at the bubble, he is the one who is really to blame here. But it's just very picky and finicky and dull.
Bubble Ghost has a Moby Games rating of 7.
They're wrong.
Which is pretty high for Moby Games.
I really wanted this to be a game that I loved.
Okay.
When I saw this back in the day, and even when I first started playing it on the emulator, like, oh, I could get into this. This could be all right. It's just the controls are so finicky and awkward and frustrating. And maybe if I had like played it first on the microcomputer, I would be more forgiving of the Game Boy version.
Yeah.
But I'm not. As somebody whose first experience with this is on the Game Boy, because here in North America, we didn't get this until the Game Boy version.
Yeah, I mean, it was on a shit, like there was a DOS port, there was a C64 port, it was on Amiga, Atari ST, but really...
Yeah, but all of those are Europe exclusive so far as I'm aware.
Yeah, so it's the Game Boy version.
Yeah.
Is the one. It's also on Ant Stream, don't you know?
Oh, God. Of course it is. And now I will say one thing I thought was interesting about this is, so far as I'm aware, this is, if not the only, then one of the only games that Pony Canyon used the name Pony Canyon in North America.
Oh, like on the cover?
Not on the cover, but on the game itself. Like when you power it on, it says Pony Canyon on the screen.
Interesting. Yeah, because the cartridge says FCI.
Right, which was their U.S. name.
Yeah. But although the copyright does say FCI/Pony Canyon, so there's something. And then if it says on the title screen too, how odd.
Yeah. But yeah, like when you first turn on the cart, it shows the Pony Canyon logo and it says Pony Canyon under it instead of saying FCI.
Yeah.
Which I thought was weird. But anyway.
On the back of the Game Boy game, it says, adapted from the international best-selling PC game.
It might be. By international, they mean just within Europe, though. Yeah, I
would be interested to see if any Europeans have different opinions about bubblegum.
I am excited about that. I want to see everybody come and tell me that I'm wrong in the Discord. Please come tell me I'm wrong in the Discord.
Look, it says right here, official Nintendo seal of quality. That's how you know.
All of these games have had that, Justin.
What?
I know.
That seems unlikely for my next game.
Yeah.
Which is Godzilla.
Oh, yeah. Game Boy Godzilla.
Which is a Category 1 turd. For years, I thought this was just a port of NES Godzilla, which is also a Category 1 turd.
It was a bad game, but
it's not awesome. Mm-hmm. It sucks a lot. So, it's this digital piece of trash features the most fearsome monster ever to grace cinemas the world over, doing what he does best, which is, of course, punching rocks. I guess
that's what Godzilla does.
It's the thing he does. It's basically a Sokoban game in which Godzilla must punch rocks to death to progress through increasingly complex puzzle rooms. Standard Godzilla stuff, right? Things we all know.
That's what Godzilla does. He solves puzzles and he punches rocks. What?
The whole time, the cutest, most adorable monster sprites are flooding out of doors to attack. And it is mostly, well-known, famous Godzilla creatures.
Like Mothra.
You've got Rodan there. There's no Mothra. Oh. There's the Smog Monster. Ghidorah's there. There's Mechagodzilla. Anguirus is there. And the whole idea is the Godzuki was never in the movies. You might be talking about Godzilla Jr., as he was referred to in American cinemas, but more accurately referred to as Manila or Minya. Godzuki was only in the animated Godzilla series.
It's the best Godzilla.
So no Godzuki.
Aww.
So what upsets me is that it's so fucking cute. It is the cutest fucking thing in the world. It is all these Godzilla monsters shrunk down to little tiny cute little chubby little guys. It is soul crushingly cute. It hurts me. It's so cute. And it's also fucking annoying as hell because, for example, Rodan flies above your fist and hurts you, but you can't punch up and you can't punch while climbing. So he just annihilates you while you're slowly climbing a vine.
Like Godzilla
does. And you're just basically punching rocks and running from bad guys. The Smog Monster is invincible for some reason unless you smash him with a rock. And like many block pushing games, it's very, very easy to kind of lock yourself out of being able to solve the puzzle and needing to restart, so you can hit the pause button and then you can restart. Once you finish a room, you get to pick a direction where you go on this big grid of puzzle rooms. It's just...
If only you could rewind like in Cat Rap.
It's not even as good as Cat Rap. And what pisses me off even more is on the cover of the game is all these Godzilla monsters looking very fearsome.
Right.
Just looking terrifying. And then when you look at the back, it looks shitty and dumb. Even on the back, it says Manila at stake, Manila TM. Although I think, again, Minya is the preferred name these days in the Godzilla fan community. Don't you know? It sucks. It's a piece of shit game. I hate it. It's not fun. It looks really cute. Even looking at it, like just looking at the back of the box, it looks like a cute puzzle game. It's not. It's an unfun garbage puzzle game that sucks, and I hate it, and I'm mad that they made it. What's your last turd, Saturn?
I have to stop and bring attention to this picture that I just found of your Godzilla game.
Uh-huh.
Because it's a picture of possibly when you save Manila.
Okay.
And
oh, no! And it says, "Thank you, Daddy," at the bottom? Oh, I hope I remember to make this the episode art. It really needs to be. If I didn't do that, someone tell me, and I'm going to go change it to Manila saying, "Thank you, Daddy," with no neck. Oh, boy.
Oh, it's so good. Anyway.
Now, I to be fair, I don't know if you know what Manila looked like.
No, I have no idea.
Here, hold on. I'll share a picture. So this is the actual costume of Manila on the back of the box. So it's not far off. But Manila always looked stupid.
Yeah, but in that picture from the game, it looks like a deleted scene from Land of the Lost or something. So bad. Anyway.
Yeah. So tell me about Quarth.
My last game is Quarth.
Yeah.
Which is not the guy at the bar in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. Okay.
It is technically an arcade conversion, so I'm kind of cheating a little bit.
And it has a Moby score of 7.7. Hey, Godzilla was, I think, an MSX port, so, although we never got the MSX version, so
right,
it's a Game Boy game to us.
So, technically arcade conversion. It's a Konami puzzle shmup.
Uh-huh.
So, it's basically Tetris as a shmup.
Okay.
And
I don't hate this idea.
Tetris pieces come down, and you're in a ship, and you shoot bricks at them in order to form squares, and then they go away.
I'm looking at the arcade flyer. It looks fun.
Yeah.
It's not?
In concept, I can see how this could be interesting, but maybe it's just because of the Game Boy version is so slow that it lacks any depth.
But Saturn, I'm looking at the back of the box. It says right here, official Nintendo seal of quality. So I don't know.
All of these had the seal of quality, Justin. It's
so
just
are we wrong? Or is it the children?
It's just so slow and dull. Like, I feel like there could have been a good game here.
Yeah.
If it was just a touch faster and there was a touch more to do. However, the best part about this game is that you can choose your ship, and I chose the one that looked like a winged dildo. And so I got to play as a dildo with wings.
Let me zoom in on this back of the box screenshot here. Oh, I see that. That is a winged dildo. All right.
Yeah, it was a winged dildo ship.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it was okay. It feels like it had a lot of potential.
I feel like they really enjoyed getting to lie about the success of the game on the back of the box because they call it the Blockbuster Puzzle Challenge. And you are indeed busting blocks, but usually Blockbuster is not referring to that.
Yeah, it feels like there could have been something really interesting or exciting here, and instead it's just really slow-paced and easy.
How could a game with this description be boring? With a mortifying rain of bionic block patterns descending upon you, you race back and forth in your powerful blockbuster ship, obliterating the blocks before they blow you to kingdom come. How do you not get so amped, Saturn?
Yeah.
I understand.
At least I got to play as a flying dildo.
That's true. That's something.
Yeah.
Let's talk honorable mentions. I have some. Mm-hmm. My first one is a straight down port, so it didn't make it on my list. But it is Street Fighter Alpha Warrior's Dreams.
That's a good port, damn it.
Nope. No, it isn't.
I'm going to say that for the Game Boy, that is an incredibly impressive port.
Do you see
as
how
a
you
game,
qualified it?
It's not
Moments
good.
Later.
Right?
Moments later, you qualified this piece of shit. Was this on your hidden gems list? I swear.
I think
when
it was.
we did Game Boy hidden gems, I think it might have been. I played a shitload of this game. It's not a good game. I will agree to the point that it is an impressive feat.
Yes.
For the Game Boy Color.
Especially when you compare it to earlier Game Boy fighting games like the shitty Mortal Kombats.
Yeah,
because those are not playable.
Wasn't this one? Was this Super Game Boy? No.
It was Game Boy Color.
Something else. I'm thinking of Ballerina Toshinden.
Also, the original Street Fighter 2 is Super Game Boy enhanced on Game Boy and lets you play 2-player on a Super Game Boy with just 2 Super NES controllers.
I have another one that I almost put on my list,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't because I just enjoy the game so much. But I think it kind of sucks, but it is one of my favorite soundtracks that has ever existed in video games.
Yeah.
And the Game Boy has great soundtracks. There were some really good tunes on the Game Boy, and it is Balloon Kid.
Yeah, I love that game.
Which I really enjoy. It's kind of boring.
It is kind of dull.
You know, it is a first-party game. But, you know, it's okay. I don't think it's quite a turd. But I don't know, man. I really, really enjoy it. But I can, it's kind of boring. It does have a kick-ass soundtrack, though.
One that I would like to add to the list, as far as honorable mentions, that I almost put on my list, but I thought it was too close to being a port to consider, even though it's really not a port at all.
Despite my two direct downports.
Right. Is The Simpsons Escape from Camp Deadly.
Oh, yeah, there were several Simpsons games on Game Boy.
Yes. And that was the first one. And it was one of the games that I received with my Game Boy. And God, what a giant piece of shit that is.
Let's see. There was Bart and the Beanstalk, Bart versus the Juggernauts, Itchy and Scratchy and Miniature Golf Madness.
Right.
That was it. That was all of them.
And Krusty's Funhouse.
Was Krusty's
and
Funhouse
Escape
on
from
it?
Camp Deadly.
Oh, yeah. Well, were those Game Boy Color?
No, those are Game Boy.
Huh. I don't know why I don't see them on my list. How strange.
It might not be listed under Simpsons.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Because Camp Deadly was Bart Simpson's Escape from Camp Deadly, not The Simpsons.
I forgot. This was in the era when The Simpsons was Bart.
Yes.
There it is, Bart Simpson's Escape from Camp Deadly.
Yep.
Or, as it's known in Japan, Bart No Survival Camp.
Nice.
My last one that I want to put on here is far too famous to be hidden in any regard because it is one of the most famous Game Boy games ever made.
Oh.
But it sucks, and it's Super Mario Land. Super Mario Land sucks. That game's a turd.
I would say that it is better than anything else we've mentioned today. But
I'd rather play Balloon Kid than Super Mario Land.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, the fucking Super Ball ruins Mario Land for me.
The vehicle segments are cool. It's cool that they did it on Game Boy. I get that this was their attempt at like, hey, how do we scale things down to Game Boy size? And it was a noble attempt.
Yeah.
And I also,
completely overshadowed by Mario Land 2, which is an excellent game.
Far superior game. Really, all the other Mario games on Game Boy are far superior, including the Wario games. I mean, even Super Mario Land DX is more enjoyable to me, I think, than Mario Land.
Yeah. The God, I'm. Oh, also, Wizards and Warriors 10. Also
10?
bad. Yeah.
They made 10 of them?
It might have been Wizards and Warriors X. I'm not certain. Because there was only 3 on NES, and then the Game Boy game was inexplicably called 10.
I do find it interesting how that there is some cross section between our hidden gems and hidden turds list. A little bit. I would be shocked if Balloon Kid wasn't on my hidden gems list.
Yeah.
And Street Fighter Alpha was on your hidden gems list. I'm pretty certain.
I believe it was, yeah.
And it's interesting how fuzzy the line gets when you're talking Game Boy because a thing you kind of brought up is for the Game Boy. And this was the justification was for the Game Boy.
Yeah.
When
you're looking at the limited hardware.
And I feel like that makes the line blurry, you know.
True.
It makes it a little difficult to sometimes tell between like what's a good game and what are you just happy to have.
Yeah, what are you putting up with because it is in front of you?
Like Super Mario Land is a great example of a game where it was like, all right, if my choices are that little game that's like a little water-filled plastic tube and I have to push buttons to squirt the little ring onto the little hook, or Super Mario Land, I would take Super Mario Land every time for eternity.
Now, that said, we had handheld games before the Game Boy.
True.
Because there were like the little Mattel portable football game.
Yeah.
And there was like Coleco had released little tiny, not quite portable, but tabletop versions of Q*bert and Zaxxon and games like that that were pretty close to arcade ports that were playable.
I would probably take Super Mario Land over any of those, any Tiger handheld.
Zaxxon's pretty good.
I would take it over like a handheld Yahtzee game.
Well, yeah, maybe.
So it's difficult where it's like, yeah, in that regard, in that context,
Right.
it's a good experience. But in the context of video games, TM,
Right.
you know, it's not, man.
It's a little disappointing.
It's not very good. It's just kind of
Just looking at that "Thank You, Daddy" picture again.
Me and my daughter's constantly asking me if Godzilla is a boy or a girl, and every time I go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I go,
Well,
they
now
always
you know.
they always use male pronouns, but I don't think they know either. And she
Yeah.
goes, well, Godzilla has a kid. How did she
Yeah.
have a kid if she's a boy? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know the answers to
Well, even if
these
she's a
questions.
girl, how did she have a kid?
Yeah, that was my follow-up. Although many reptile species are known to
That's true.
spontaneously reproduce
Fair.
without a male
Without fertilization,
you know, come.
And if you would like to come,
Look, I know it was jarring, but it's not as jarring as this transition to our Patreon at patreon.com/Retro Warriors, where you can tell us about your turds that you would pick for the Game Boy. Not your regular turds. Please don't tell us
No.
about that. Because I really am curious to see if Europeans love Bubble Ghost or if other people
Right.
agree with me that Super Mario Land is just not very good. I know that it was cool to have it in a car back in like 1990, but I just don't think it was a very good game.
You know
on
what?
the
Several
whole.
people in our Discord have tried to defend Super Mario Land and say that it is one of the best Mario games.
Oh, no.
So, just like to say, you got some competition there.
I'll give them this. One of the best Mario soundtracks.
Yeah.
I'll give them that.
But God, that Super Ball is the worst power-up Mario's ever had.
We got Talking Wizards. We got our other show we do, and there's pictures of Saturn
read along
doing karate at our
Is there?
Patreon. If you go there, he'll post them, and
No, I won't.
you can.
I absolutely will not.
I have to sell them something, Saturn. Right now, it's just me and Andrew talking about cereal and Kevin James movies. Nobody wants this. We do want to thank our following patrons for their kind donations, starting with Konshu.
Oh, crap. It didn't pull up. There it is. Justin's transitions are now my new favorite part of the show.
Jonathan Meisner.
Harry Pry.
Our producer, Guy.
Hey. Grimoire Games.
Free Code Camp Quincy Larson.
First.
You were not first, but I like that you tried. Edward Majewski Jr.
And Ebucel.
Are all the patrons we want to thank for their very kind donations of cash dollars that they send to us on the internet. So nice of them, and we appreciate that they do it, and we spend the money on good, fun things like Pogs and
other Pogs
and Silly Putty and that kind of thing. So just
Wait,
know,
we can get Silly Putty?
look, you can spend your stipend on whatever you wish.
Oh shit, my bad.
This is your prerogative. You could buy some of that. You remember Floam? It was like goo, but it had bits of styrofoam in it. Like that was supposed to make goo more fun.
I remember the commercials for that. I never actually saw it in person.
It's like an industrial scientist was sitting around like, how do we get rid of all this industrial waste? And someone was like, what if we just mix shredded foam and goo and give it to kids, sell it in infomercials after zoo books?
It was a Nickelodeon branded product.
Oh, was it? Floam was?
Yes.
I remember them selling GAC.
Yeah.
But
It was first was GAC and then Floam.
I know everyone remembers the Zoo Books commercials.
Oh yeah.
But does anyone remember the Blow Pins commercial?
No.
Imagine a marker, if you will, and it's full of a liquid ink, and you give it to a child and tell them to blow through it, and it will, like a spray paint can, spray ink out the far end.
Why the fuck would you give that to a child?
I wanted it so bad. And of course, the first thing I would do would be inhale all of the ink, obviously. But man, I wanted those blow pins. Thank you so much for listening to the show. We'll be back next week. And as always, let us cling together.